The position between the mundane and the kind of extreme. You just say, "I got the tool bag." Yeah, I got the tool bag. Now, hammer's coming out now.
This is the last of the bags that Tim Peake is handing out.
The station off, right?
Oh, here comes sunset.
He
Look.
wants to go out too.
It happens so fast. The
that's
whole
darkness.
station
So we're moving
glows
to night
red.
now.
We're just the station is driving into the shade of the earth.
It's really cool seeing that Union Jack go outside. It's explored all over the world. Now it's explored space.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be wearing it.
So that's his helmet. So he's
This
holding
is the
on.
moment.
And
This is the moment where he's about to step into space.
he's about to pull himself out.
All right, gents, once you're happy, we are ready for config checks.
So Tim is now outside in the universe. Tim is outside. And
Let's have a round of applause.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
We're going to have a look, by the way, at the spacesuit like Tim's. And by the way, if you have any questions you want to ask about spacesuits or spacewalks, please send them in to the usual addresses that are on the screen right now. Chris, this is a model of a similar spacesuit to the one that Tim was using today. Could you show us around?
yeah, it's inherently just a little bag of the Earth's atmosphere that you're carrying around with you to keep you alive. A little pressurized one person. So you get hit by a little meteorite, and then one thick, tough layer here. And then inside it, it's a pressure bladder in order to hold the air inside. And then all of that against your skin is a liquid cooling garment pumping water around your body. Pressure as a volleyball. So that resistance of the cloth itself, every time you want to close your fist, it's like you're squeezing a tennis ball every time. And there's no break. You're in the suit for 6 or 7 hours that way.
So when we see Tim doing quite difficult,
Printed backwards.
Yeah, of course, if you're in this suit and you're trying to control the stuff in the front, you can't see it. So you wear a wrist mirror on your left wrist. And so if you want to adjust the temperature, you look at that, you reach down, you dial it to where it needs to be, or
to reach my mouth, am I going to be able to breathe? So I basically started navigating my way in the blind using the experience that I had to try to reach the airlock.
Hatches open, Shane. Lucas going with relax.
After all of this, are you still very keen to do spacewalks? And if so, will you approach them differently?
I was ready to go outside the next day. I wanted to go outside and finish the job.
Libby, what happened there in the situation?
So, in order to keep the astronaut's body temperature regulated...
Looked into it really seriously. They looked at the design. But if it's something that only happens when you're weightless, then it's really difficult to figure out exactly what caused the problem. But they replaced a bunch of pieces, they put that suit back into service, and that suit was being worn again today.
there aren't many of these suits in existence.
No, there's like a dozen of these suits that exist, and there are 3 up on the space station right now. It's not like there's a bunch of reserves you can go to.
You can't swap them out very easily.
No, they're complex and rare and expensive, and so you want to use them for as long and as many times as you can.
So it was a suit that Tim Cooper was wearing today.
It's the same one that Luca was wearing.
Okay, the first moments of Tim's spacewalk were in darkness, but after just half an hour, he experienced his first sunrise.
All right, gents, the sun is coming up. You're over Western Canada. We're looking great on the timeline. We can take it nice and easy and no hurry at all.
Now I think we're going to see our first glimpses, hopefully, of Tim Peake in daylight on his first spacewalk.
You really get a sense of the scale. I haven't really had that sense before, but looking at these pictures, it is a vast structure, isn't it?
It's nice if you get lost, though. We have painted little arrows all over the station that say airlock that way.
That must be Tim Peake there.
I think Tim Coper already went out.
Yeah, he did, yeah. So that's Tim Peake clinging onto the bottom of the...
You're a good man, Tim.
He's got a
Thank you for
bag of
that.
tools. You can see his safety tether as well.
Yeah,
as he
there's
goes
the
hand
We do have
over
a call out
hand.
for
Attach back.
2032 forward.
That there is a Union Jack
well,
on the
thank you.
shoulder on the outside of the space station. Yes, for the first time. It's nice to see.
It is, isn't it?
Does it make you feel insignificant? Does it make you feel proud? How does it to watch something like that unfurl beneath you?
I think what Tim's going to come back inside with is a true sense of perspective. And the fact that you recognize that you're small does not necessarily make you feel insignificant.
And I put in my poor
Because
man's fairly
through
number
our
3058.
creativity and our invention, we have figured out a way
Great
to
call,
get
Tim.
to where he is today. You know, to get to see the whole world like this out the window, to start exploring the rest of the universe in person. That gives you a great sense of historical significance. But you also recognize just how small you are, how ancient the world is, how the distances are beyond comprehension, and you're just out there in the middle of it all. You really get a sense of where we are in the universe.
You know, one of my favourite moments, beautiful little moment, when we saw that Tim Coper had a picture of his family strapped to his arm. And we believe that Tim Peake also did, but we saw that image there, which I thought was very beautiful. And there it is. And it's attached to his checklist, to his emergency checklist. Actually, you brought your emergency checklist along, didn't you? This is the one that's flown twice.
Yeah, so it's really nice because Tim Coper's wife was there in mission control watching today, so she got to look at that quick image over his shoulder and see on what are these blank pages in the very back where he'd put
Better photograph. David Hartley wants to know, do astronauts have any time for sightseeing or contemplation during an EVA?
There's no, if you were to look at the timeline that NASA built for the spacewalk, nowhere in there does it say take time out for contemplation. but you try and work as efficiently as you can. And inevitably, there's going to be a few moments in there where you get ahead of the timeline. And in this case, they got all the way out to the furthest end of the space station, and they had on the order of, 15 or 20 minutes waiting for the sun to go down before they could start doing the actual work. So it was a beautiful moment that Tim will remember
I loved
forever.
it as well, because he just visor up like that and a big smile.
Yeah.
You'd have to.
By the way, really quickly, Sean Murphy, age 7, asks, how heavy is that suit?
How heavy is the suit? It weighs more than I do. Maybe as much as you do, I think.
So not heavy at all.
No, it's weightless, in fact.
Right? Yeah. Tim Peake is number 215. The ISS was built...
Back in November, a box called the Sequential Shunt Unit broke. Now, there are 8 solar arrays on the space station, and each one of those provides power to the space station. It's completely solar array powered. Now, the Sequential Shunt Unit is effectively a voltage regulator for one of those solar arrays, and it makes sure that the power coming in is good to use. So, that broke. We need to go and fix it. The space station's fine at the moment, but if another...
Always feel the clock ticking behind you, but for these two gentlemen today, they knew that they had basically a half hour, and and at the end of it, the electricity was going to be back on. So they really got a sense of the time and the urgency and the pace with which they had to work.
And if they'd had a problem and the sunrise
In that one dark pass behind in the shadow of the world.
So knowing the limitations under which this had to be done, let's go back to Tim's spacewalk as the astronauts start their repair, which is not without its hazards. So explain to us the risk that's involved here.
The risk is electrocution, because a lot of the suit is metal, so you could actually conduct electricity through the suit. Or if it starts sparking and arcing and spitting, little Tim is watching, highlighting the area that he's working. It sounds like it's turning at a nice rate, which is good.
4.5. Okay, push it my way a little bit more.
Dude, I'm looking at the station end of it, and it all looks clean.
So the old one has been removed, it's been checked, it's been stowed.
Yeah.
So now it's the new one goes in.
And now the focus is taking the last strap off the bag of the new pristine. This sequential shunt unit just came up to them, just came up on the last. The clock is your enemy in a spacewalk, always. The clock is always ticking, and you always have
But there's a very real risk here when we move back into daylight.
But here they are definitely working against, in the next 15 minutes, they have to get this solved, or it's going to have an effect on the rest of their spacewalk. Looks like it's going well.
Okay, guys, let us talk.
Contaminated water into my left eye, and really like oil or shampoo or something in your eye, so you can't see, but your tears don't drain. And the ball of tear got bigger and bigger and bigger on my eye, until eventually it got so big, this floating ball of contaminated tear, that it crossed the bridge of my nose and went into my other eye and blinded me. So then until eventually I cried enough and my tears evaporated, so that it started to dilute the stuff in there that I could start to see again. And so then I told Houston I could see, although I couldn't really see very well, but I could see enough, but I was tired of listening to my oxygen hiss out. As soon as I could just start to make out shapes, I closed this valve and then got back to work. And we finished the whole spacewalk about an they have all indications that the SSU they just secured is just as good as the SSUs that they went by on their way out there. They got everything done in this darkness period, so that's terrific.
Now, Kevin, we heard something which sounded a small...
Could be done. Well, astronauts do have a jetpack to help them get back, but its fuel only lasts minutes, a scenario that Tim had practiced for safely when on the ground.
Houston, EV2 is off structure at the airlock and drifting.
It's September last year, 3 months before Tim's mission. He's in NASA's virtual reality lab in Houston.
It feels incredibly real.
As he floats away from the space station, he has one chance to save himself.
Safer handle deployed, powering on, waiting for motion to cease, pitching up. N2 level, 35%.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm drifting a little bit port, and I'm still high above the station, not really adjusting as quickly as I'd like.
People might think that you can use this to fly around space station. You don't have that much time. It's a limited amount of gas.
Pretty low on gas.
Very good. Let's rejoin Tim now, as he's attaching 28 meters of communication cables. It's work needed to pave the way for a new adapter which will allow commercial spacecraft to dock with the ISS. Previously, he was working alongside Tim Copra, and now he's on his own.
So
Having, I don't know, your mom with you, you
Yeah.
know, to say, hey, don't do that. Okay, you're doing great. And oh, wait, watch out for that.
But
and
that's-
someone that gives you that voice of second look and comfort.
And it's not just an anonymous voice from Houston. This is someone with whom you have. It's another astronaut, essentially. Someone with whom you have a long relationship.
And not only another, so there's a great collegial feel of professional trust as well as just knowing each other as two people, and it's a very nice voice to hear in your ears when you're so far from home.
He's doing very well at this point, isn't he? He's doing very well out there.
Yeah, he's. If you sit and wait inside the station with your head somewhere near the metal hull, if you wait long enough, you'll hear the station get hit like a little ricochet sound.
You even today described some parts that you think that is armor, you said.
Yeah, it's got a. So you're thankful for the armor when you hear it getting hit, but when we bring back a piece of the station, like an old communication antenna or something, we look at that and it has hundreds of little punctures, little dings all around the surface, so we can actually figure just how often we do get hit.
See what? So that's just luck, because you look at these things in the fabric, and there's not a lot of protection in a spacesuit, is there? So you just
eventually something will go very wrong on a spacewalk, but we take our chances. We do the math. We try and understand it. We try and make the suit as robust as we can. And for the 193 spacewalks we've done in the station, our design has worked very well.
Mark Lifford asked, what are the others presumably in the ISS, doing while Tim is on a spacewalk?
Well, there's 4 people inside whilst Tim and Tim were outside. Scott Kelly, the commander of the space station, he helped them get into their spacesuit and will help them get out of their spacesuits when they come back into the space station later. The 3 Russian crew members will be aware of what's going on. They'll be following along, but they'll also be carrying on with their science experiments and their exercise and their normal day-to-day life.
Okay, so it's a day as normal for most people. As long
With
as it's going
awareness.
right. Okay. Now, let's rejoin Tim as he carries on his suit.
Fingertips will hurt for a week. If you aren't careful, you'll rip a fingernail off. The suits will rip your fingernails off. And by now, he's probably skinned most of his knuckles. It doesn't stay in that early
We've just had big
pristine
news, by
drawing.
the way. They're terminating the EVA. They're going back into the space station.
Ah, okay. It must be because of Tim Copra's.
Read my website in a good punch.
For Tim Copra,
Yeah,
we want
okay,
you to get Tim Copra. We want you to get your crew lock bag on your BRT and start heading back towards the airlock.
okay. So that's Tim Copra's suit, probably.
Yeah, I haven't heard the reason yet, but Tim Copra has a sensor in his suit that measures the level of carbon
So
dioxide.
here he is now. So
And,
it told him to get straight back.
It's not that the air supply is guaranteed in your undergarment. If it starts leaking, then you could have a fairly high volume of water collecting in your helmet, and then that can really lead to problems because you can breathe it or get it in your eye.
Okay, so Tim Peak, as Tim Copra comes by you, which he's going to do here in just a minute, we want you to give a quick visual assessment of the water in the top of Tim Copra's helmet.
That's a good idea. So he's going to look into Tim's helmet and see, obviously that's Tim Copra. He's doing all right, and he's heading back, losing vision. And then worst case, you're starting to have to spit out water every time you breathe. That could happen fairly rapidly. This is the time to be doubly methodical. Nobody's dying right now. Let's think about, we don't want external layers, but right against your body is an undergarment with these tubes in it. And these tubes collect the heat all around your body.
Between the ESP and the lab,
then they go through an adapter, and then they hook up to the plumbing of the spacesuit itself, and then that runs through a chiller in the back.
Looks like the water may be a little bit thicker. It's about...
Is getting into the helmet while it shouldn't be outside during a spacewalk, and it's water from this cooling system. And so they have stopped the EVA in the most safe and careful manner they can. They've already got Tim back inside, and we're hooking him up to the ship's oxygen and water. And now it's up to Tim Peake to finish all the cleanup, and he'll be responsible for closing up and closing the hatch.
So there was a sudden change in mood, and
We've come up with a different procedure. We actually wear sort of a modified nappy on the back, just in case that happens, so it won't get into your eyes. And I think listening to what happened to Tim Copra today, he had essentially the same problem Luca had, but the absorbent material took a lot of the water.
We then got back to this airlock safely.
But as Kevin said, we saw that failure of the CO2 monitor, which can be caused by moisture. I think we mentioned it at the time, actually. And so it looks like that was perhaps a signal of something going wrong, as you said earlier.
Yeah, that detector can be tricked by lots of things. It can be tricked by water and water vapour. That's what we see in our life support machines in hospitals, in anaesthetics and intensive care. That's what's happened here. And it just underlines for you that this is truly the smallest spacecraft that you will ever travel in. It doesn't have the same levels of redundancy as the space station or the shuttle or the Soyuz. So you're pretty vulnerable out there, and that's why they got them in quickly.
And now there's a new level of responsibility on Tim Peake's shoulders.
Because the job, he was supposed to go in first, and Tim Copra, who's already done two...
A greater exertion now to return.
It's mostly just a sense of urgency, and you don't have time to take a break.
Will Tim have trained for this?
Yeah, they've both trained for this. Tim Peake is familiar with the mechanism. It wasn't his job to... This is Tim Peake's helmet as he's pulling the internal hatch into place, and now he's starting to drive the locking mechanism.
Tim, are you just talking about the little tab right at the base of the hatch handle there?
Yeah, just the little tab at the base of the handle is still in the unlocked.
Locked. Tim Peake brings him in, close up the hatch, brings him back into the care of the International Space Station. A genuine sense of relief, I'd imagine, for everyone there.
Absolutely, and it was an unexpected problem. We wanted to get Tim and Tim back in safely. We knew what we were doing. We knew we had time. No, the crew were never in danger, but we still...
Everything to go right all the time, but that's the main thing.
We essentially have an unlimited list of things we could do while we're outside. Most of them just aren't worth doing a spacewalk for. Today, the one that we really went outside to do was to fix the electrical system, and they did that immaculately. Yeah. They got that done right away. And then Tim Copra got the pressure valve installed. That's good. Tim Peake got a lot of the cable laid. And then we ran into a problem, and we did the right thing and came inside. But it was a rollicking success overall of things getting done. And we dealt with a serious problem, which will teach us about the suits.
We all breathed a huge sigh of relief when we knew Tim was back safely on board. If we were relieved, however, how must it have felt for Tim's family? Let's ask him. His father, Nigel, and his sister, Fiona, join us from Chichester. How was that to watch this afternoon?
Pretty interesting. I wondered at one stage if I was going to need a maximum absorption garment or whatever they call it. But I think in Chris Hadfield's word, it was a rollicking success.
I think it was your wife who said on the day of the launch that it was a good day at the office. Does this count as an even better day in some ways?
Pretty good. I mean, it's taken us 25 years to actually see what he does, you know, to catch him at work. So it was wonderful to sit there with a cup of tea and see him tethering himself and carrying out his tasks properly and professionally. Yeah, it's a pretty proud.
And when you knew that that was it, and they were almost back to safety and just waiting to get the pressurization levels back again.
It's quite incredible that, you know, that a member of your family is one of the only 215 people who've ever done a spacewalk, and the only one from Chichester as well. So the hits keep coming. You must be terribly proud of this.
You get a voice message, which we did, but it just comes up. It's not a special number. It doesn't say ISS or space or whatever. It just comes up as a phone number, and you hope that it's not somebody trying to sell you PPI insurance.
Well, good for you for not screening out your son's calls from...
Well, all the teams at NASA and around the world will already be having discussions about what possibly happened. What does it mean? Was it the same as Lucas failure? Was it another one? And they'll be looking at all the data. They've already had the crew taking lots of photographs, collecting the amount of water. They may bring it back, they may not. These are discussions and decisions that will happen in the coming days.
Can we reflect, though, on what a terrific achievement
Symbolizes.
You know, I thought it was a really powerful moment when you said we had for the first part of the spacewalk, we had 3 schools in. Yeah. And you said, you looked at those children and you said, you've never been alive when there were no humans beyond Earth. For their whole life, humans have been off the planet, and hopefully will be forever now.
The space station is such an incredible achievement. At the start, before they started building it, they had what they called...
but Libby, for you to summarise, it's been a terrific day, but the whole project, the International Space Station, goes on. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes, it is, and it will continue to go on doing fantastic science, inspiring the next generation of children to get involved in science and technology, engineering and maths. Today was a job well done. We went out, we fixed the sequential shunt unit. Everybody's done their job.
Tim's only been in space for a month, and so much has happened, so I'm sure you've seen. He's still got 5 months to go, so you can certainly follow his mission all the way through, follow his re-entry down to Earth. There's about half a year of it still to go.
Absolutely. Thank you for